And my name's Kevin Aker. I am your council commissioner. And when I thought about what I was going to do for a presentation, I didn't want to limit it to just something that involved the commissioner staff. Everybody needs to know what commissioners are, what they do. And so, real high level, that's what I want to go through. Um, so, first of all, what's the mission of commissioners? Well, it's exactly the same mission as scouting in general. So, this mission statement to prepare youth to make ethical and moral choices over their lifetimes by instilling in them the values of the Scout Oath and Law. That applies both at the district level, at the council level, and at the national level. That is our mission statement. And sometimes we probably need to come back and read that again to make sure we're doing what we need to do. And especially in the tough times that we're going through now, it helps us to kind of ground ourselves and understand why we're doing what we're doing. The vision of commissioners is that every member in BSA has a great scouting experience. Well, what does that consist of? Well, I think mostly that consists of having an excellent program, because program is key to everything we do in scouting, from the standpoint that that's how we're going to recruit kids into the program, because they're going to see what other kids are doing and say, hey, I want to be a part of that. It's how we're going to retain kids in the program, uh, because we're doing something exciting. We're doing something that they don't get anywhere else. And we want to continue that and keep them involved. And that also leads into the third point, which would be advancement. If we keep them in the program, we've got to keep them moving along. And that's that, scout Cub Scout to Scouts BSA transition. That's also just what Doug covered, becoming an Eagle Scout. So again, just making sure everybody is having a good time and they're having the experience that we want them to. Objectives. Now, this gets a little wordy, but commissioners do what they do, and supporting unit growth and retention through Journey to Excellence is number one. Well, I think everybody on the call probably knows what Journey to Excellence is, or JTE, but that's just really nothing more than a set of measures that we establish to say, are we doing everything we can in the program? Commissioners contact and they capture information about unit strengths and needs in a tool called Commissioner Tools, an online tool that we utilize. And through that, we come up with unit service plans that help units build their program and achieve the things that they want to do everything that we've talked about previously: retain youth, uh, recruit youth, and advance those youth through the ranks. Um, Number three is linking units with district operating committees and other resources. So if a unit is struggling with a particular area, let's say advancement, we will connect, as a commissioner, we will connect them with the resources that they need to maybe help improve that. And that may be a unit, or that may be a district resource, that may be a council resource, or that could even be a unit resource. So we've got a Cub Pack that they're just moving people right along with no problem, and they're doing it in an excellent manner. Well, maybe that advancement chair in that unit is willing to share that information with another unit. So we're not going to turn away any opportunity to help a unit with whatever connections that we need to make. Number four is supporting timely district or unit, district, and council charter renewals. Well, guess what? We're approaching that time right now. So, you've probably, as unit leaders, you've probably already received electronically your recharter packet, for lack of a better term. And you need to start taking a look at that before the end of the year, because time will slip away from you. And part of that, reviewing that, is making sure that all the leadership in the unit have current youth protection training. And we'll probably talk about that a little bit more later. But on-time charters and renewals, we want to be sure that you don't lose your tenure as a unit that's been around for 25 years. And then number 5, supporting unit leaders by collecting and distributing information. We want to be sure that all the leadership in all the units know everything that's going on as much as possible. Well, that's become a little more of a strain with COVID-19, because less and less units are meeting in person, but we can direct them to the council resources on the council website. A variety of means to distribute that information. And just like this University of Scouting today, making sure that all unit leaders are aware of what's going on. So our goals. Commissioners want to see an increased number of units. Well, how are we going to accomplish that? Well, we got to have more kids involved in the program. And we've got to go into areas where maybe we're not servicing all the youth that we need to be servicing. In our council, we've struggled with engaging minority groups, and that's an area where we can improve. So hopefully that's something that we can accomplish in the years coming, that we can get more minority groups involved in scouting, because they need scouting just like everybody else does. Enable the retention rate in units. Well, we've already kind of covered that, but how do you do that? Well, chances are it's with program. So everything stems around program. And the last point there in our goals, that's really kind of wordy. Enable implementation of unit service plan through collaborative detailed assessments and increased number of significant unit contacts. Well, what unit commissioners do are visit units, whether that be virtually or in person. They note within commissioner tools the strengths and the needs of that unit, and then they assist them by creating a unit service plan. We're going to talk about this in the next slide. A unit service plan to help them achieve the goals that they need to do to keep that unit alive and well and growing. So here are our methods, and these are kind of universal, but the unit roadmap, and what I would suggest is, if you're interested in that, just simply go out and Google that BSA unit roadmap, and what you're gonna find is you will get a document that talks about starting, sustaining, and growing units. And it's a rather lengthy document, and I'm not going to go into it in detail, but it's how you can figure out how to start a unit and keep the unit that you currently have alive and well and growing. Number 2, new member coordinators. This is a relatively new position that was defined about a year and a half, I guess, yeah, 18 months ago. Ellie Morrison was the national commissioner at the time this came along, and she was very adamant about the fact that this needed to be emphasized. So what does a new member coordinator do? Well, they kind of serve as an ambassador for your unit. They work with the unit committee, and they help develop a plan to welcome and onboard new members and their families into a Cub Pack or into a Scouts BSA unit. They need to be able to share the benefits of scouting. They need to be able to talk to that point. They would probably be the ones to coordinate unit recruitment, and they are the ones who guide that joining process and welcome those families when they do on board. Unit Key 3. Well, Key 3 is a term that is used all the way from the unit all the way up to the national level. So at a unit level, your Key 3 is your Cub Master, your Scout Master, or your crew advisor, the chartered organization rep, and your committee chair. And those are the folks that make key decisions within that unit. And by the same token, you've got that same level at the district, you've got the same level at the council. And, you know, I'm part of the Key 3 at the council level. I don't think that needs any more explanation. It's pretty simplistic. Unit service plan, we talked about that a little bit earlier. Unit service plan is simply something that a commissioner will work with the unit Key 3 based upon that commissioner's observations of the unit's strengths and their needs, and come up with a plan for the coming scouting year, along with collaboration with that unit Key 3. You kind of set a plan in motion because you know, otherwise you're kind of a ship adrift. You want to go back to some ideas that how you're going to get to where you're going, because if you don't have some sort of roadmap, you're going to get lost along the way. And along with that plays in Journey to Excellence, because that's your measurement of whether you're meeting those goals or not. My scouting tools, there's, you know, I will say that from the time that I've been involved in scouting, you know, the IT support from BSA National years ago was pretty poor. I almost used the wrong term there, but there have been drastic improvements, and now with all the tools that we have available to us, both you know, via computer or via a mobile device, there's not much opportunity to say, well, I don't know how to go find that, because everybody's carrying around a cell phone, and if you've got that, you've got access to the scouting tools that you need to operate a unit and operate a den, operate, you know, all the way down to the grassroots level. Number 7, continuous recruiting. Well, that kind of applies in not only commissioner, but also at your unit level too. But we're always needing more commissioners. And we're going to talk about that here in the next slide. But we never have enough boots on the ground. You know, we're trying to achieve a 3-to-1 ratio of 1 commissioner for every 3 units we have. Well, we're nowhere near that. And it's kind of pie in the sky to think that we will get to it, but we're doing the best we can. And by the same token, in recruiting at the unit level, you need to be doing that not only in youth, but also in your own leadership. You always want to have a succession plan in place, because when that Scout Master or Cub Master steps out, you don't want to be figuring out, well, who the heck's going to take their place? And then 8 is assigning resources to the greatest needs. And from a commissioner standpoint, that really means, yeah, we've got we don't have the number of commissioners that we need. And let's say we've got a unit that is just going gangbusters. They're doing everything right. You know, they've got great program. They've got great recruiting. They've got great advancement. Well, it's not that we're not going to send a commissioner out to see those folks every once in a while, but we've probably got other units that are struggling, and we're going to use that resource to its best advantage. And that's going to be where they need the help the worst. And so don't be surprised if your particular unit is doing extremely well, that you're not going to see a commissioner very often. So what makes a good commissioner? Well, you're probably all familiar with the term servant leadership. And some of the attributes of servant leadership are what I've got bullet pointed here. You've got to be an effective listener. You've got to be able to understand what the speaker's saying, uh, what a speaker is saying, and demonstrate some interest, and then provide feedback. Empathy. You've got to understand and share feelings with the person who's doing the speaking. Vision. Um, you should be able to see what the current strengths and needs are, and then envision and communicate a future that builds upon both the strengths and how to address those weaknesses. Persuasion, well, you need to be able to translate vision into action, and that is how you cause people to believe and work toward the vision that they have. Accountability, spend time celebrating successes and look for ways to improve performance other than offering criticism. And when issues arise, you need to take responsibility for that publicly, but then fix the problem privately. That's not something you want to do out in public. Team orientation. So, you know, many hands make the job easier and lighter. So we're not looking for one person to be the answer for all problems, but we need to build teams that work cohesively and solve the problems of a unit and help them get and succeed in all those things that we've talked about before, which is getting that unit where they are advancing kids, they're recruiting kids, and they do that because they've got a fantastic program that they're delivering. Well, I've kind of blown through my slides. There's my contact information, and I want to be available to anybody who needs me or has questions. You know, let's go back just a second to commissioner recruitment. So we talked about the attributes that we're looking for, but who would make a good commissioner? Now, there's several opportunities. As kids advance through the program, sometimes an adult has been involved at one level and their scout moves to the next level, and maybe they're not as involved, but they still want to be involved somehow. So maybe a Cub Scout den leader who has had a child that moved on into Scouts BSA, but doesn't necessarily want to be involved at the troop level as much. That person has scouting experience. They understand the program, and they can relate to problems that they've seen. And so maybe that would be a great person that we could use as a commissioner. Now, do you have to have scouting experience to be a commissioner? No, you don't. Because if you've got those attributes that we talked about earlier, and you've got a passion to make sure that the youth that we service get a good program, well, we can teach the scouting methods to a person a whole lot easier than we can teach that servant leadership. So we don't have to have someone who's been in scouting for 20 years to become a commissioner. We can take somebody right off the street and probably educate them pretty quickly to get them up to speed.